Black. Well, we focus on the explosive growth of the social networking site Twitter. It's the third biggest U.S. social networking site, 17.6 million users, an increase of more than 27-fold from the previous period a year ago. Twitter has increasing social and political implications, its use anyway. Earlier this week, the State Department asked Twitter to delay scheduled maintenance of global network because Iranians were relying on Twitter to share information about protests from Tehran. We are joined now by two guests to talk about Twitter as a cultural phenomenon and also about its financial future. Rich Jaroslavsky is executive editor of Bloomberg News. He is joining us on set right here in New York. Steve Frederick is a general partner at the venture capital firm GrowTech Ventures. He joins us from our newsroom in D.C. We're glad to have you both with us. So we want to ask you, Steve, first of all, can Twitter continue to grow at this rate?
Well, I certainly think so. You know, Twitter is in the very early stages by almost any measure of its growth, purportedly growing 30 to 40% month over month. If you compare Twitter's user base to perhaps Facebook as a proxy, we've got a long way to go. You know, I would guess they're in the first couple innings of their ultimate growth.
And Rich, we want to bring you in here. I mean, Twitter has really become a cultural phenomenon, and as we've seen most recently with the State Department asking Twitter not to shut down the site. I mean, how is this different from any other kind of product that you've seen in the past?
Well, it's kind of amazing when you stop and think about it. State authorities never like online media because it's very, very hard to control. In this case, the state authorities are trying to hold down traditional media, and Twitter has become basically a way, or an end around, a way around what's the state's efforts to control things.
Rich, you know, as we were just discussing, the State Department asked Twitter not to go ahead with the scheduled maintenance. How significant was it, though, that the folks from Twitter actually mentioned Iran in the statement that they put up? Well,
it's a two-edged sword, Eric. On the one hand, when Twitter is still at this very early stage and you still have people saying it's just a fad, it won't last, it's something that people will move on from. When you have the State Department and the Obama administrations asking you to do something for diplomatic reasons, it's validation to a certain extent. But it's also a threat to the extent that it raises political risk. And the blog post that Biz Stone, Twitter's founder, put up, see, it's very carefully worded. It says, we agree that free flow of information is important, but by the same token, we're not an arm of the State Department. They don't have any say over our decision making.
Rich is going to stay with us, but Steve, I want to ask you, I mean, basically everyone uses Twitter, but it's not profitable. How much longer can that go on?
Well, I think certainly the company has to find a way to monetize itself here over time. The founders have gone on the record as stating that that is their intent. You know, my guess is that over the next 12 months, we'll see the company begin to experiment with a number of different ways to monetize the base they've built. And I suspect they will experiment, iterate, and look to the community to help guide that evolution, to do so in a way that doesn't run counter to the user experience of their members.
Steve, we only have about 30 seconds left. Is one of the most obvious points selling ads?
You know, I think so, and I think it's selling ads around the concept of search on Twitter and discovery on Twitter. So I think we'll see that along with a number of other compelling and interesting ways to monetize their base.
All right, Steve, we thank you very much. Steve Frederick there, and we thank our Bloomberg executive editor, Rich Jaroslavsky, both of you for joining us. Steve, of course, of GrowTech Ventures.